Welcome into Pittsburgh Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. I am Tom Downey here once again with a trade mailbag, answering your trade ideas / questions / actual trade packages on today's show. And if you want another trade mailbag, I like doing them. I find them fun, entertaining, and it's always nice to get you guys heavily involved in the show. Show it by liking today's video. The more likes we get, the more trade mailbags we'll do in the future. First up, a full-fledged kind of trade package from Joe Solomon. The Steelers get a late-round pick, and the Jags receive quarterback Mason Rudolph. Not the worst idea out there. Does save some money for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's also a question of this. Does anyone want Mason Rudolph? At this point, I think it's pretty clear we know what Rudolph is. He is a backup caliber quarterback and not that good of one. He's obviously not going to take the job from Trevor Lawrence, but could he beat out C.J. Beathard, Jake Luton? Actually, maybe in Jacksonville. But also if you're Jacksonville and you're rebuilding, even for just, let's say, a 7th-round pick, is that something you want to give up for Rudolph? I'm not so sure. I would say it's a lot more likely if Pittsburgh says we're only going to carry 2 QBs, that they outright cut Mason and save some money that way. But let's say there is a team interested in a late round pick exchange for Mason Rudolph, just like Joe's idea was. Would you trade him away? Y for yes or N for no? Sound off for me in the comments section. From I'm Really Rotten, I saw a proposed trade of Diontae Johnson to the Packers for a 2nd and a 3rd. I would strongly consider this if it came to my desk. There have been a lot of recent different trade packages, ideas, or just trade away Johnson. This one from I'm Really Rotten had the most specific examples, so I picked it over 5 other ones. I was surprised over how many people were desiring to trade Johnson because this is the type of arc you want out of your young wide receiver. Steady growth year over year. The average isn't that high. That was also partially the usage out of Pittsburgh. I also saw several comments of he can't catch, which unquestionably drops were an issue in 2020 for Deontae Johnson. These all the numbers per Pro Football Reference, by the way. 5 drops last year on a pretty heavy target share for less than 3% drop rate. That's really good out of your receiver. I think the he can't catch narrative is kind of coming in from the 2020 campaign. Look, if you don't want to pay Deontay Johnson top 10 receiver money, I understand that because that's banking on him, being a little bit better overall than what he's been so far. Although I will make this note, he was 10th in receiving yards last year. You don't find those guys super easily. So I understand the concerns for paying him big-time money. So there are 3 routes you have when it comes to Johnson. You can trade him right now if you're not going to pay him and get probably, let's just say, a 2nd-round pick back. Pretty good value there. You can wait a year, maybe franchise tag him, see what happens this season with different quarterback play. I would not just give him away for nothing, though. So I want to hear from you. This is our pinned comment. The 3 options when it comes to Deontay Johnson's future. T for trade, P for pay, or W for wait. Daryl Wright next up here with another kind of we actually had 2 DK Metcalf trade packages back-to-back. First up from Daryl, Deontay Johnson, Mason Rudolph, and a 3rd for DK Metcalf and a 5th. So let's pretend that the proper trade value is a 1st and a 3rd. That's what it was for A.J. Brown. So the 3rd's taken care of. Let's pretend Mason Rudolph is worth a 5th. A little high. Do we think the difference between Deontay Johnson and DK Metcalf is a 1st-round pick? I'm not so sure that it really is in the end, or that Deontay and a 1st gets it done. Now, Deontay a 1st? I don't think that's right. From Bruce, meanwhile, a similar trade package. Johnson, Rudolph, Benny Snell, and a 2nd-round pick. So we're a little bit closer in the trade value here. Mason, Rudolph, and Benny Snell, those don't really move the needle for me. But a 2nd's better than a 3rd. We can pretend it's 2 seconds with Johnson counting as a 2nd-rounder. Gets you closer in the range for a player of DK Metcalf's value. Again, if we were being honest, if we have a hypothetical community poll, who would you rather have, DK Metcalf or Deontay Johnson? I think most of us would take DK Metcalf over Johnson from that standpoint. Would Seattle, if they can't get a long-term deal done with DK, maybe. But then again, you're also moving a second-round pick for the right to pay DK Metcalf probably around $25 million. Would I do it? Maybe. Although I do think Johnson fits better when you've already got some bigger-bodied receivers in Pickens and in Claypool. But then again, Deontae Johnson's the better player, or is the lesser player compared to DK. So I probably have interest on that front. Clever idea, though, guys. If you have other Steelers trade ideas, put them in the comments section right now. It makes my life and producer Jeremy's life easier if you use hashtag Steelers while doing so. To help us out, if you have trade ideas or comments or theories or whatever, put them in the comments section right now. Sean Grizzly, next up here, a similar package to the DK one, this time, though, for Deebo Samuel. Diontae Johnson will say a second-round pick, more so than the third, because the second has more value, in exchange for Deebo. Now, of course, as I'm sure everybody knows, Deebo Samuel requested a trade from San Francisco. Hasn't gotten it. The Niners have turned down pretty significant trade packages there. At minimum, the price would be as much as A.J. Brown, which is a first and a third for Brown. So I think in the end, you probably have to include your first for either Deebo Samuel or DK Metcalf plus Deontae Johnson. Maybe the team sends a pick back as well to help even the money out or the value out. But it would be expensive to get either Deebo Samuel or DK Metcalf. Big-time trade cost and $25+ million per year. So factoring in the cost involved of acquiring those two non-Steelers receivers, who would you rather have? DK Metcalf, type in DK. Deontay Johnson, type in DJ. Deebo Samuel, type in DS. Pick a wide receiver for me in the comments section right now. Next up from Joe Solomon, once again, should Pittsburgh make a trade for Myles Gaskin to have a solid number 2 running back on the Steelers roster? It's not the worst idea. I do think Gaskin, relative to the NFL value, isn't very expensive. He has gotten better each year, and although he was in a bad running back room for an offensive line, like he didn't have a good offensive line in front of him, Gaskin didn't produce all that great. Does bring you some decent third down value. I think he'd be very affordable for a team. We're talking 5th, 6th, 7th round pick. And I think he'd be better than Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland. So I would say two things. This would likely be a roster cut-down-ish type of trade. And I wouldn't rule out the possibility of Gaskin getting cut by Miami. Think about what they have right now in terms of that running back room. They signed Chase Edmonds. They signed Sony Michel. They signed Raheem Mostert. Those are their top 3. Could they carry 4? I would not be surprised by that. But Gaskin, Salvin Ahmed, Jared Dokes, all those guys are available. They're not going to carry 6 backs. So I think Miami is a good team to keep an eye out for if you want to go trade or sign one of their roster cuts. Steelers fans, we are this close to 14,000 subscribers here on Steelers Talk. We need 46 more. I think we could get there on today's video. Prove me right by subscribing right now. From Bruce Fyock, they need to trade Devin Bush if they can get at least some type of draft pick. I know there are some who are unhappy with Devin Bush, and I get it, he had a bad year last year. I would not be dumping Devin Bush quite this soon for any draft pick. I think he can still help you. I think he can still and should start for you. Look, if Buddy Johnson balls out in the preseason, maybe we can revisit that conversation. But I am not all the way out on Devin Bush yet. Given what this team invested in him, what his upside, or at least perceived upside, should still be, I would give him one more year just to see what else he can do in 2022. From Forever Nemo, Fletcher Cox, question mark. Couldn't he be a potential trade deadline guy? So Fletcher Cox could be traded after June 1st and before the NFL trade deadline. But I think there would be one big, condition on that. You would have to be really, really bad for Philadelphia. Like, they have to be terrible to move on from Cox. He's under contract next year. This year/next year, they view themselves as contenders. So it is possible that the Eagles, though, would not save very much money with the way they've structured Cox's deal over as of late. I would love to acquire him. Cox and Cameron Hayward, oh man, what a dynamic duo that would be up front. That would be, I think, the best interior defensive line duo. I love Stephon Tuitt. Cox at his peak was better than Stephon Tuitt was. So possible, yes. Likely, I would say not that high. When it comes to a potential pre-NFL trade deadline deal, will the Steelers make one? Get your predictions in for me right now in the comment section. 1 for yes or 0 for no, they will not. One last idea here from Luke Mack. The Steelers receive Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs get a first-round pick and half of the Pittsburgh City's allotment of French fries in their supply. Luke's trolling, but I appreciate a good troll, Luke. So thank you very much for watching and subscribing to us here at Pittsburgh Steelers Talk.